The Dynamic Learning Maps Alternate Assessment System is a new assessment designed to more validly measure what students with significant cognitive disabilities know and can do. This presentation will provide information about the development and use of a core vocabulary for students with significant cognitive disabilities who require augmentative and alternative communication. This training, DLM Core Vocabulary and Communication, is one in a series of trainings that support teachers of students with significant cognitive disabilities in their efforts to teach and assess. Sponsored by a grant from the U.S. Department of Education, Office of Special Education Programs, this training is part of the professional development efforts of the Dynamic Learning Maps Alternate Assessment Consortium. The DLM essential elements address a wide variety of communicative functions. As described in Claim 3, students are expected to communicate for a range of purposes to a range of audiences in ways that become more complex over time. While this communication competence is the focus of English Language Arts Claim 3, it is also required for students to be successful across all of the essential elements throughout their school day and in life beyond school. While communication for a range of purposes and audiences can be challenging for any student with significant cognitive disabilities, it is even more challenging for those students who cannot use speech to meet their daily communication needs. These students require an augmentative and alternative communication system, also known as AAC. And the vocabulary we choose to include in that system is critical. How can we know what vocabulary is most helpful to provide students who use AAC? One answer is to use an AAC system with a core vocabulary. A core vocabulary is a relatively small group of highly useful words that apply across contexts. These are words that students can use across their entire day, not just in one activity or setting. Because this relatively small group of words is used so frequently, students get lots of practice locating core words within their AAC system and using them to communicate in real-life situations. The AAC research has shown that about 85% of the words that speaking individuals use every day is made up of approximately 250 to 350 words. For our students who have challenges speaking and learning how to use AAC systems, this is good news. If we choose the correct vocabulary, students who use AAC can use this relatively small set of words to communicate many things across a variety of contexts. Look at the words in this example of a core vocabulary set. Notice that there are not any nouns included in this core vocabulary set. Few nouns are typically included because nouns are often specific to a particular situation. Instead, a core vocabulary contains more pronouns, verbs, descriptors, and question words. This variety of word classes allows students to express many communicative functions, including asking questions, responding, requesting, rejecting, protesting, commenting, and describing. Use of a variety of communicative functions is specified in the DLM essential elements. The idea of core vocabulary is not new. Researchers in the AAC field began examining the vocabulary use patterns of speaking individuals and individuals who use AAC as long ago as the 1980s and 1990s. This research was used to develop the DLM core vocabulary list that is the focus of this training. In addition, the DLM team reviewed the essential elements to determine words and word classes that the essential elements require, and then checked to ensure that they were included in the core vocabulary list. Examples of specific words required for expressive use by the DLM essential elements are the WH question words, including who, what, where, when, and why. Examples of word classes include things like common verbs, personal pronouns, and describing words. Another consideration in determining the words that ended up on the final DLM core vocabulary list was how frequently students would encounter these words in written text. All of this information was then analyzed to create a list of 463 words, ranked according to their usefulness in academic activities and everyday communication. If you work with students who are currently using an AAC system in an effective way, we are not suggesting that you replace the AAC system with the DLM core vocabulary. However, you could cross-reference the DLM core word list to see if there are any differences in the vocabulary sets and if there are any words from the core list that you might want to add to the student's AAC system. If you have one or more students who require an AAC system but do not currently have one that meets their needs, the DLM team is in the process of creating several core vocabulary word sets that can grow with the students within and across school years. Let's take a look at one way an AAC system could grow with a student over time. Here is a system that has 4 core vocabulary words and symbols per page. The 4-location grid is outlined in pink so that you can keep track of it as more locations are added. You might use an AAC system with so few symbols per page if your student has motor or sensory impairments that make it difficult to see the items in each page or to indicate which item the student wants to select. Of course, we would never want a student to only have 4 words in his or her expressive vocabulary. So we're suggesting that you provide at least 10 pages with 4 core vocabulary words on each page for a total of 40 words. As the student is able to understand and use more symbols, the system grows, but the original symbols remain in the same relative locations. That way, the student can focus on learning the new vocabulary and symbols that have been added to each page without having to unlearn and relearn a new location for the original words and symbols. Here, the system has grown from 4 to 9 locations on each of 10 pages. The system can continue to grow in this way, making sure that words the student has already learned remain in the same relative place on the same page, while new words are added around the border to increase the total number on each page. A few things to remember are that core vocabulary words can be used with any symbol set, and that core vocabulary layouts can be used on paper-based systems as well as voice output devices. When deciding how many locations you should have on each page for a student, be careful that you don't underestimate what the student can learn. You do not have to start with 4 symbols per page and move to 9. You may have a student who can use 20 or 30 symbols on a single page from the very beginning. It's not expected that students can use every word or symbol when they start with the system. You want a system that they can grow into over time. When you initially give an AAC system to a student, it is likely to be very unfamiliar. Students who use AAC typically do not see other competent AAC users that they can learn from. These students hear spoken language or see sign language, but they cannot respond in the same way. Their expressive language involves a different process that requires selecting and combining symbols once they decide what they want to communicate. We can teach students who use AAC how their system works by pointing to one or more key symbols on the student's system while we are speaking our messages. This is called aided language stimulation, or more simply, modeling, and it helps students see where symbols are located within their system and how they can be used to communicate. While adults model the use of the system by pointing to appropriate symbols while they talk, they should also point to the symbols to show students what they might say. For example, when a student is visibly excited about an activity, the adult might point to the symbol like and say, "You like it." If the student points to like, the adult can expand on that by pointing to like and adding it, saying, "You like it." This repetition and expansion is critical to communication and language development. Keep in mind that the fewer the number of symbols and words on a page, the more difficult it is for the communication partner to model language and expand a student's messages. This table shows the DLM first 40 recommended core vocabulary words. In this table, the words are organized into 10 groups of 4 words each for students who need to start with 4 locations on a page. Students might need this limited number of symbols on each page because of sensory, motor, or significant communication challenges. But most students will likely start with a system that has more than 4 symbols per page. This is just one way of organizing these 40 words, and it was developed with the idea that the student using AAC and the communication partner could have multiple communication exchanges without having to constantly flip through the pages of the system. Educators in several DLM states have used the first 40 vocabulary words to create their own core vocabulary layouts with 8, 9, 16, 32, or even 36 words on one page. Some of the larger core vocabulary sets have been programmed into communication apps and used by students on tablet computers. This 32 location overlay was created by a speech-language pathologist in Iowa using AssistiveWare's Proloquo to Go. Many of the smaller core sets have been used on low-tech voice output devices. For example, here are 8 location and 9 location core vocabulary layouts developed by the speech-language pathologist and the emergent literacy coach from Fletcher Miller School in Jefferson County, Colorado. They used Mayor Johnson's Boardmaker symbols to create overlays for the Tech Talk 8 and Attainment's Go Talk 9. These and other communication layouts will be posted on the DLM Virtual Community of Practice for your use. Now, let's focus on teaching and modeling language for students who might use a core vocabulary set. To help a student learn how to use the core vocabulary, we must take the time to teach the meaning of the words and the symbols that are used to represent the words. As stated previously, adults must also model how to use the system. One way some teachers support this instruction is by creating a wall-size version of the core vocabulary set their students are using. The teacher in the video you are about to see is using this wall-sized core vocabulary display to teach her students the words and symbols in their core vocabulary AAC system. As you determine how many words and symbols a student will have on each page of his AAC system, consider that students need words that they can use immediately, as well as words that they'll learn over time, given your instruction and modeling. When teaching students the meaning of the vocabulary words and the symbols included in their AAC core vocabulary system, start by highlighting a specific word and symbol. Show the word and symbol to your students. Next, use the word and symbol in a variety of examples and pair the new word you are teaching with known words. Watch this short video clip. The teacher is teaching her students the core vocabulary word, can. Notice that the teacher is using the printed word can rather than a symbol. She made this choice because the symbol for this word was so abstract that she decided it would be just as easy for her students to learn the printed word. And the long-term benefits of using a printed word were steps toward conventional literacy. Notice also that she uses the word in meaningful sentences that include other words and symbols her students already know.
Leah, eyes up here. I want to tell you guys something. We have a new word.
No.
Our new word is can. Nice job, Erin. Our new word, can. And can means that we're able to do something. So if I tell you, I can do something, that means I can do it. I am able to do it. So I can jump. I can jump. Oh, stop. Stop. I can jump. Wait. Joshua, you can jump. You can jump. Go ahead. There, look at you can jump. You can stop. Yep, sit down. All right. I can, our new word can. I can sit.
Did you notice that many of the children in the class were able to use speech to communicate? The teacher included them in the lesson because it provided an excellent language learning opportunity for all of them. She did not have to isolate the students who were learning the core vocabulary system to support their communication. She could use it to teach all of the students more conventional language use. In this next video example, the teacher asks a student to use the word can in a sentence he creates. Here, the student gets the chance to apply the word he has just learned in his own sentence. Notice that the teacher uses the symbol on the large communication board to ask the student what he can do. This is an example of modeling language use using the same system the student uses. Also notice that all of the students get involved at the end of the video. Teaching vocabulary is interactive and engaging in this classroom.
What can you do? What can you do? Oh, you run seems to be pretty popular now. Run. Can you tell me?
I can.
Oh, you knew right where they were. Look at that. Yeah, you got it. I can run. Run! Go! Hey, I get you. I got you. There goes Alicia. And they're all off. And they all can run. They can run. All right, you can go. You can go run. Go, run. You can go.
In that same lesson, the teacher reviewed the word and symbol on. Watch as she helps her students learn different uses of the word on. She teaches the concepts of putting an object on something, turning something off, and putting clothes on our bodies when we get dressed. The teacher is providing lots of repetition of the word, but using the word in a variety of ways.
Ready? We're going to talk about a word today. Isaac, look. No, this one's look. We're going to talk about the word on. On. Yeah, I want you to look at this. On. On. And we're going to talk about all the different places we can put our frog on. So we're going to use put. You guys know put. But our new word is on. Isaac, I need you to stop.
Quiet.
And we can put our frog on my foot. On.
On the what?
I can put it on Isaac's head. Put on. On. I can put it on my chair. On.
So.
Another way I can use on is if I want to turn something on. If I have the lights off, I can turn on the lights. On.
Off.
We can turn them off. On. Turn on. We can turn them on. Turn it on again. Okay, Isaac, turn it off. Okay, turn it on again. Thank you. Sit down. He turned them on again. So we can use our word. We can use our words to put something on, Isaac. We can use our word to put on, turn on, and Mrs. Devin's going to read us a book about different clothes you can put on. A coat is something that we can put on. What else can you put on? Sarah's coat, we can put on gloves, we can put on shoes. There's lots of different things we can put on. So we're going to read a book about that.
As we conclude the module on the DLM core vocabulary, remember that in order to develop communication, language, and academic skills, students who use AAC need access to vocabulary that will allow them to communicate for a variety of reasons with a range of audiences. Students need instruction, modeling of the AAC system, and expansion of utterances in order to learn what words mean, where they are located, and how they can be used. Because core vocabulary words are used frequently and in a variety of contexts, students get repeated opportunities to practice what they are learning about vocabulary and language and real and meaningful communication exchanges. This is part of the power of core vocabulary. Be sure to visit DLM's virtual community of practice to access core vocabulary resources. These include a ranking of the 463 words in the DLM core vocabulary, a paper explaining how words were selected and ranked, a list of DLM's first 40 words, and some core vocabulary overlays shared by DLM state educators. These resources will continue to be updated and expanded over time. For more information about the Dynamic Learning Maps Alternate Assessment System, please go to www.dynamiclearningmaps.org. Thank you for your participation.